1, 2, 3, 4. Those are numbers, but you already knew that. If you want to know what number you're going to pay each month for your car, use Kelly Blue Book My Wallet on Auto Trader. They're really good at numbers. Auto Trader.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to die.
Hello and welcome to Unequal Sequel. I am Dave and I'm one of your two hosts for this new and exciting podcast.
And I'm Rich, and I'm also one of two hosts of this exciting podcast. Think of me as Murtar to Dave's Riggs. I'm too old for this shit, and he thinks he's a loose cannon with bad hair.
The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best sequel, worst ever sequel, and finally, their dream sequel.
And of course, quite often we drift off course and just have a few chats about movies.
On today's episode, we are joined by Helen O'Hara.
Helen is a fantastic film journalist, and you might know her from her brilliant work on Empire magazine and also the Empire Film podcast. She's recently released a book called Women vs. Hollywood, which came out in February this year.
We're very excited to sit down with Helen and chat all things sequel with her.
This is Helen O'Hara's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy.
Helen, I've just read on your Wikipedia that your first ever...
Yeah, I have a Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Huh.
Did you not know that?
Right.
This is amazing news.
No, I think the last time I looked it up, it was there was a Helen O'Hara from Dexy's Midnight Runners, which is she plays violin.
Oh.
So I knew she had a Wikipedia page. I don't think I knew I did. But anyway, sorry. I assume it's right. Hopefully.
It says journalist Helen O'Hara.
Correct. Good. Yeah. Good start.
It's got where you're born.
Oh shit.
yeah, quite detailed. And there's a whole bit about your career. There's a quote, but it says your earliest memory was seeing Return of the Jedi at the cinema. Is that correct?
That's one of, I think my earliest cinema memory is actually Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was re-released. I wasn't around in 1937,
that's mine
just to be
too.
clear.
Yeah,
oh, really?
That's my earliest cinema memory. I went with my gran.
Yeah. That was my dad took me to that. I think probably because my sister had just been born and they wanted me out of the house for a minute and give my mum some peace, I would imagine. But yeah, I was about 3 or 4. So I was a bit younger, I think, when I saw that than Jedi. But Jedi is one of my first cinema memories, yes.
Is that the first sequel you remember seeing?
Yes. Yes, it would be. But I hadn't seen the original. I hadn't seen Star Wars and I hadn't seen Empire. So I ended up seeing Jedi in the cinema and then Star Wars on TV probably like a year later. And then it probably took a couple of years to see Empire. Like I was really, excited to see it and like frustrated that I hadn't, because we didn't have a VCR even in those days. Yeah. So it took a little while. Yeah.
Did you still enjoy it? Did you understand what was going on, or was it just, little Ewoks?
Yeah, I don't remember being confused. I mean, I don't know if my dad or somebody explained it to me or if I just sort of went with it. Yeah, sure. Empire bad, Rebels good, super on board. Yeah.
I watched it that way around as well, Return of the Jedi, and now it is my favourite Star Wars.
I think it's underrated. Yeah. I think the people who claim that they didn't like the Ewoks even as children are liars. Mm-hmm. I've said this before, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, but I just don't believe you. I really don't. So
it's the most fun.
Yeah. And that three-way, the 3 battles simultaneously at the end, superb. Yeah. Absolutely superb.
Rich, do you agree with this?
Yeah.
Or do you...
I like Empire.
Oh, look, I'm not saying
no shame in
I'm not saying it's the best or anything of the 3, but I think it's wildly underrated. That's my
absolutely.
take, basically.
And I totally agree with you that people who don't like the Ewoks are either joyless, scary people that you want to avoid, or a lion because they think it's cool.
Mm-hmm. They think it's cool. This is it. They think it's cool. And I try not to define myself by not liking things, apart from, Joker. I try not to define myself that way because I think it's just a little bit immature and
no one likes to be too negative, but we'll get onto that later when we start being negative over things.
Oh yeah, of course.
So what was your pick for your best sequel?
I think I picked Last Crusade. Which is funny because I forgot that I'd given you an answer on that today, and I was thinking, maybe it's Fast Five. Because I am not consistent in my views in any way. But Last Crusade is a good shout for this, I think, because I had seen the other 2 Indiana Jones when I saw that. But being a young girl of a certain age, I was extremely excited to see, River Phoenix in a Indiana Jones movie. That was pretty exciting. And I loved that prequel section because at that point I was not bored to death of prequels and all who sail in them, and didn't find them a little bit unsatisfying. In general, not always, obviously not all prequels, # not all prequels, but so many of them just like, they don't need to exist. Whereas the one in Crusade, okay, doesn't need to exist, but it's so charming, and we hadn't seen that done before, and it was like, oh my God, that's where he got his scar, and he got his whip, and he got his hat, and that's funny.
And the snakes.
And, you know, and snakes, and it is really funny as well, that whole, everyone's lost but me, that's a great line. It's so kind of young Indiana Jones who would then grow up to be, you know, something of an iconoclast. I just think stuff like that is brilliant. So yes, I love Crusade. I love the relationship with Henry Jones Sr. I love the way that it forces Indy to kind of face up to his own bullshit a little bit. I just think it's really witty and silly and fun, but without losing what makes the character good, you know? So yeah, superb.
What makes that sequel so good that you can watch it straight off without seeing the other two.
Yeah.
And you'll know exactly what's going on in the character. But it is also so good because of the other two. Yeah. Which makes Last Crusade, in my opinion, the best one.
Ooh, wow.
I'm a very weird man.
Big claims.
And like Return of the Jedi, I didn't watch them in order. I watched Temple of Doom first.
All right.
So I stand by, I love Temple of Doom, and I think that gets a bad rap.
I also think that gets a bad rap. I will say that, you know, the criticism of it in recent years has focused very much on the racism, which is a totally fair bad rap. I will 100% get behind that. But there was a period where it was kind of cool to, you know, pile on to Temple of Doom, and that I was not down with, because I think there are incredible sequences in that. I think there's some terrifying stuff, absolutely terrifying stuff that is not in any of the others. And I think it tries to do something different than the film that came before it, which is very much, you know, to its credit. I know that was a prequel, but it doesn't fall sequel to, you know, prequelitis. It's not like, it's not trying to explain everything. It's not trying to fill in all the blanks. Like a Solo is the kind of prequel I don't want. I don't want to know how he did the Kessel Run. I don't want to know how he met Chewie. I just accept that is a fact of life, that they are together.
And how he got his name is the worst part of any.
That was absolutely dreadful. No, I don't like that. But even though everyone in the film was great, you know, people behind the film were great, but it was just such an unnecessary film that didn't need to exist. But like a prequel in the sense of Temple of Doom, like it might as well be a sequel. Like there's no real difference. It doesn't undo anything. I think the only reason was, you know, they wanted a different love interest, but they didn't want to undo him and Marion because they realised that that's pretty great, which I think is the one good thing about that. I don't know if you've heard of this 4th Indiana Jones film. I don't think it counts really as canon, but people talk about it with some effect. No, people don't talk about it with affection. But the one good thing about it was having Marion back, because that was always such a great relationship.
I absolutely love Indiana Jones. I really wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid because I wanted to be Indiana Jones. I had absolutely no like fascination with archaeology whatsoever, but a treasure hunter with a whip, absolutely, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I feel like most people's first year of archaeology school is unlearning everything that Indiana Jones does.
Absolutely,
he's a terrible teacher as well.
He's an awful teacher.
Oh, terrible! Yeah. Yeah.
I was watching the scene today when he's outside his office. He's got a massive queue, and all I could think was that's because he's never there. So they're trying to get their questions in as much as possible while he is there, and then he jumps out the window anyway. In
fairness, at least half of them were clearly also there to seduce him. Not just half, but at least half. But yeah, there were clearly some people there who had questions about their final grades, and were getting no answers whatsoever as he jumped out the window.
No, it's not very helpful. Rich, are you a big fan of Last Crusade? Would you say it's your favourite one out of let's say
I think
3?
it is my favourite, actually. I think it is my favourite out of the 3. I'm not counting Crystal Skull. It doesn't count. No,
I've never heard of it.
Don't know what that nonsense is. I do like it. I like Sean Connery in it. I think he's absolutely brilliant in it. And apparently a lot of his best lines are kind of ad-libbed as well. You know, like how all the best lines always are ad-libbed. But apparently the when he's talking about Elsa, his femme fatale, whether they slept together or not, and he goes, she talks in her sleep. that line, apparently that's improv. That's
wonderful.
That's not in the scripts.
Wow.
You can tell that compared to some other Connery films that he's actually enjoying himself on this one. You can see there's a twinkle in his eye that rarely pops up, maybe through the Bond films. and maybe The Highlander, because it's a brilliant film and I won't hear anything negative about it.
I mean, it's a dreadful film, but I love it.
I'm trying to make my wife watch it at the moment. And it's the way I describe it, she's like, no.
No, but they cut each other's heads off.
Yeah.
Funny. Sweet, you'll love
And
it.
Queen did the soundtrack, it's great.
The soundtrack is great. The concept is great. The sequels are...
There can only be one,
but,
and yet there's 4 or 5 of them now.
Plus TV spin-offs. Plural. Yeah, it's not right.
But yeah, I would probably still watch a remake of that. Or a sequel again, because I'm a loser. Let's try and get back to Indiana Jones. Which sequences do you really enjoy in Last Crusade? What really works for you?
I mean, kind of pick one. I think they're all great. I think that's, it's really Spielberg action cinema at its finest, as far as I'm concerned. So, that opening desert chase train sequence, I mean, it's a freaking circus train, because of course it is. It's perfect, that opening sequence. I love it to death. Venice, fantastic. I mean, when I went to Venice once on a family holiday, and I was just obsessed with finding that church. And I was literally walking the streets of Venice just going, I mean, that church is kind of similar, but it's not the same church. And it wasn't even like I'd rewatched the film. I was doing it all from memory. I did find the church. But yeah, I was obsessed with that. Like, it just completely overtook my visit to Venice. and then Petra, I still just would die to go to Petra. I just love it. It's incredible. I just don't think it has a bum note. I think the performances are great. The comedy is off the chain. I just love them. I just think there's such delicacy of touch and such a... I feel like it's one of those films where you see Spielberg just having fun and not having anything to prove, and just, delighting in what cinema can do. And it feels, if anything, more of a throwback than Raiders at some times. It feels even more kind of elegant and 1930s than Raiders. And it just... the texture of it, the dust stuff, the going over the cliff and then climbing back up to find his father mourning him. I mean, it's all brilliant. No favourites. Love it all.
The John Williams score is just...
Oh, I mean...
At that point, it's just...
It's ridiculous.
I love the chemistry between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery. That's the real thing for me, is that they just have that chemistry, don't they? You really do believe that they could be father and son, and that they have this complicated kind of slightly Mickey-takey relationship, even though age difference is probably not that much.
No,
12 years,
12
I think.
years, yeah.
12 years. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Which is about the same as my beloved TV show Supernatural. Jeffrey Dean Morgan and his on-screen son, Jensen Ackles, also have a 12-year age gap. So there must be a magic number there somewhere. That must be what we need, I guess.
I've never watched it.
You've never seen Supernatural, Dave?
No one's ever seen it.
I think Rich has.
I have. I love it.
I was watching it today and I realised they do a chase in every mode of transport.
Pretty much,
There's a train, there's a car, there's a bike, there's a boat, there's a plane. Motorbikes as well. I just...
With the sidecar.
They're just like, what can we put in this film? And he's like, let's just put it all. Let's just get
Just do it.
And it all works brilliantly. I don't think there is a bum note, but do you think there's a bum note at all? Anything you would change?
I'd maybe have more than one woman character, me.
Yeah.
This is one of my bugbears. But I wouldn't change it. I would just, in retrospect, if we were making it now, I'd maybe have a conversation about, hey guys, I don't know, can we get some girls in here maybe? Just a thought. ? Love you, kisses, XOXO,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know if there's a bum no. I'm probably forgetting something horrific, but I mean, Harrison Ford's Scottish accent, maybe. People seem to have strong opinions about that, but it's comically bad, so I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's meant to be good.
No, exactly.
Doesn't he do a bad Irish accent in The Devil's Own as well? Is that?
It's very difficult. I will say it's very difficult. I don't. Isn't he American in that? And it's Brad Pitt's I mean, it's been a while. A Northern Irish accent in particular is very, very hard, I think, for outsiders to get. And I am always impressed by the tiny minority of actors who can do it. But there was somebody recently who did a pretty good one. But generally speaking, just don't bother.
Yeah.
Just don't.
I can see Rich sweating because I like to do accents badly.
Don't do any accents, Dave.
No, do it. Go for it.
No, you're banned.
No, if I'm being with someone long enough, I start copying their accent and I don't even realise I do that
as well.
It.
Yeah.
So that's pretty bad. I think it's just a weird thing. So by the end of this, I might be doing it, but. Rich, do you enjoy anything in particular about Last Crusade that stands out for you?
I learned recently, from watching the episode of QI, the cup. This is the one where they drink from the cup. Was that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So the Grail wouldn't have been a cup. So a Grail was a serving dish. So actually, it would have been like a plate. So they actually did it on QI, where they got them. They said choose the right cup. And obviously they chose the cup of a carpenter.
And then did they say, you have chosen poorly?
Yeah, absolutely. And see, I haven't watched it for a long time, and all my Indiana Jones movies kind of blur into one slightly as well. But I was watching Dogma with my wife the other day, and there's a bit where Silent Bob throws one of the angels, Barspy or Loki, I can't remember which, off of the train and says, "No ticket." And I was like, that's Indiana Jones! Hey. But I don't think it's this one, is it? Is it the first one?
It is there. That's in this one. Yeah, they're trying to escape from Berlin.
Throws them off
on the Zeppelin or the blimp.
No ticket.
Yeah, no ticket. This one has so many of the best lines. I think was it a Tom Stoppard polish on the script? It was somebody like that did the polish on the script, and you can feel it in that kind of line. It's super good.
It's wonderful to watch. It's a great run time. Anything under 2 hours, I'm a big fan of.
Cynical,
How much
but yes.
did George Lucas have involvement in this movie? Was this because Indy's kind of his thing, wasn't it?
It was both of them, I think, sitting on a beach in Hawaii, waiting for the Star Wars first weekend box office to come rolling in. And Indy was a dog's name, famously George Lucas's dog. But I think it was always a bit of both. And I think, by this point in the franchise, I think there's a lot more Spielberg. Maybe I'm being cynical, but I think there's a lot more Spielberg here than Lucas, just because it feels so much of his preoccupations. And he I don't know if he still does, but I've certainly heard in the past that he rewatches Lawrence of Arabia before starting shooting on every single film he does, and you can kind of almost feel it a bit here. There's those kind of establishing shots, especially in the in Jordan and Egypt and so on. You can kind of feel that, and so it feels to me more Spielberg than even the first.
Do you think they always plan to make a sequel, then stop and make no more? Because at the end of this one, it feels like a point where they could stop, and that was about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could have stopped any time, but certainly, I'm glad it was a series because it, was based on all those old serials, and it feels right that it would be. So I kind of like this is one where it doesn't feel like selling out at all. It feels like that's correct. That is the right choice, and equally, I am okay if they stop here and never make another Indiana Jones film, as it turns out. I hope for the best for Indy 5. I don't know why they're calling it that, since there's never been an Indy 4, but, weird. But I really do hope for the best, and I really hope it's magnificent. But I don't know that I need it after this, because it feels, you're right, it feels like this one brings it to some kind of close. If Crystal Skull had been better and had Marion and Indy end up together, that would have felt really satisfying. But that film isn't satisfying. It just isn't.
I lost it with Crystal Skull when Indy didn't die in a fridge, basically.
That was like the first scene, mate.
If we all knew we could all... I know, yeah. If only we'd all known that we could escape a nuclear war by climbing in a fridge. Who'd have thought it?
I mean, just a quick exposure. It'd give you a little bit... It's fine. It's totally fine. But yeah, it's not...
Yeah,
it's not the best choice ever.
Yeah, when a film ends with your heroes riding off into the sunset, I think that's a good time.
I think that's a good, yeah.
Just sign it off there. That's pretty. That's
boom, done.
Yeah, you don't need to do any more, really.
No, your work here is literally done.
What film do you think is so perfect that has sequels that they didn't need it? So they could have stopped at that point, like Indy 4. No need it.
Oh, so just don't make any more after that.
They should have stopped at Jaws 1.
They should have stopped at Jaws 1. That's 100% correct. Yes. They should have stopped at Transformers 1, actually, apart from maybe Bumblebee. That would have been
Shouldn't have made Transformers 1 at all.
I quite like Transformers 1. And the only thing I love in the rest is basically the effects work. There's a supercut, or was a supercut online, of all the transformations in the Transformers films, and those things are gorgeous. Like ILM did superb work on those robots. So I would, if I could, keep those bits and just lose everything else about the sequels, which were dreadful. Highlander, I would leave it at only one.
Yeah.
There can only be one. Like there can be only one.
It's
That
the
is
tagline.
literally in the title, or in the description. So just leave it there. Shh, stop. Okay. I think a lot of films are like that. Terminator 2 was the ending point, and nothing since has really lived up to that. Aliens, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, there was maybe a point of just stopping. And similarly, I probably would have stopped at one Predator. I know Predator 2 has its fans. I respect you as people. I don't think it's a patch on the original.
It starts to get silly, doesn't it? That's the thing. And because
yeah.
I remember watching Predator as a kid and being genuinely frightened. And then by the time you get to some of the later sequels, you're like, this is just ridiculous. It's not.
It's one of these things, like, I think the original has just enough mythology. You get this idea of it being a trophy hunter, it being a outside force coming in, there being some kind of maybe sense of honor or ritual about that, but not a lot. But you get a tiny bit of that. But when they get into all that in the later films, and especially the Alien vs. Predator, you're a bit like, oh, just give it a rest, mate. Calm down.
Absolutely.
He still kills people. Let's not.
I was about to say it makes money, but I don't even think those films really make no money back at the moment.
I mean,
Just about.
not a huge amount.
And and talking about films that shouldn't have a sequel, I think this leads on to your worst ever sequel quite nicely. What was your pick for this?
Yeah, there's probably a few I could have put in here. So I picked Independence Day Resurgence, just because I'd watched it again recently, I think, when we talked. Because it was on Disney Plus when they got the Star channel or whatever. And I thought, you know what, maybe I was harsh, you know? Maybe it's fine. And I don't think I was harsh, and I don't think it is fine. So I went for that because I really genuinely adore the original Independence Day. I saw it in the cinema. It was such a blast, literally and figuratively, you know, and we kind of hadn't seen anything like that before. And, you know, Roland Emmerich has been called the master of disaster deservedly, because I feel like he has successfully destroyed the planet several times and has done it in different and more or less interesting ways. I think Day After Tomorrow pretty good, 2012 pretty bad, but at least, you know, different looking. But Independence Day remains like his gold standard. Like it's stunning. It's absolutely brilliantly done. That kind of 45-minute build up where there's just a sense of something coming and building is perfect. And then the massive wave of destruction around the world and all these cities just, you know, vanishing. It's incredibly well done. It's so good. And you don't even mind that they somehow take down an alien computer system with a Mac. Like, fine. Totally buy it. Yeah, I'm on board. So I just think it's great. And then Independence Day Resurgence comes along, and it's like the recent Godzilla and Kong movies where they've tried to up the ante, up and up and up and up. And they've thrown an enormous amount of acting talent at the screen and given them nothing whatsoever worth acting to do. So, you know, so many human characters in this film with so little to do. And it's incredibly frustrating to me. And if you had, you know, pared that down to about 5 main characters, I think you actually might have had something here. Although even then, you still would have some problems because, you know, Asia is wiped off the face of the earth and no one mentions it again. You know, that's not cool. And this is one of my bugbears with blockbuster filmmaking. Like, this is one of the many reasons that I really hated X-Men Apocalypse, is you can't wipe out cities and make like it's not a big deal. That's not okay. And they literally wipe out a continent and they act like it's fine. I think it's actually Asia and all the way over to Europe. Like, they basically just turn everything upside down.
3,000 miles wide, that ship, apparently. And at one point, the Burge is crashing into the London Eye. So I'm not quite sure the science behind it.
Because I think the idea is that it basically has its own gravity, we're told. So it basically lifts up the cities of Asia and sort of drops them, I guess, on the Middle East, and then lifts up the Middle East and drops it on Europe or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it also isn't okay to wipe out most of the globe and not mention it because America's all right. Like, that's... And I know that Roland Emmerich, like, he is obviously German originally, like, he does have a sort of slightly, I think, satirical take on American hoorah, Rayness. I don't know. He has a take on it, but it doesn't come across here. And I think it kind of did in the original, because you had the world being saved by a black man and a Jew, and that's not accidental. I think that's very, very deliberate. In this one, it doesn't feel like that he's saying anything, and I think that's what's really frustrating about it. So, yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it before we sort of prepped for this podcast today.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you should be. It was terrible.
Oh no.
And there's a massive Will Smith size hole in that film. There's so little charisma on show, and where there are nice bits, like they're just not enough. You absolutely hit the nail on the head with
not even close.
They just waste the acting talent they have, and some of it's just ridiculous. So how could you have Jeff Goldblum in your film and use him for about 8 seconds? It feels like
use him so little, and oh Christ, I've forgotten her name.
Charlotte Gainsbourg. What's she doing in that film? It's great.
Yeah, Charlotte Gainsbourg. You don't cast her and have her do nothing. What the hell? It was absolutely outrageous. And, you have this whole sort of weird... I can't decide if I think it's wildly patronising or, that they were at least trying something with good intentions. I'm really not sure. But this whole idea that this, African nation has essentially been fighting the aliens in a guerrilla war ever since. That's cool. And then they do pretty much nothing with that in the FNAF.
Give me that film.
Yeah, but it just... It kind of doesn't go anywhere. So, again, I think he's trying to do some stuff. The fact that Brent Spiner's scientist is revealed to be gay, and he and his husband have a kind of lovely little couple of moments. I think that's really sweet.
Is that bad?
Oh yeah, no, he's his husband, and they're nice together. But so I think he's trying to do a little bit the same thing again. That look, it's the gay couple who saved the world, and there is a little bit of that in there.
Yeah.
But there's so little that it doesn't come through.
He was in a coma for 25 years before he woke up, right?
20 years, yes.
Where's his muscle atrophy? That really annoyed me. I was like, he's running around after about 2 seconds.
We're just going to assume that alien tech meant that they could do with the thing with the stimulating the muscles.
If that's your biggest issue with this film, Rich, then
I don't know.
It's not my biggest issue.
Yeah.
It just really annoyed me at the time. I think my biggest issue in it is that the hero in this film kind of should be like Patricia Whitmore, should be the president's daughter. That's what it felt like to me. And then as soon as she got close to being the hero, we had to have like baby Thor come and save her instead.
Cut back to Liam Hemsworth or something. Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, it just didn't work. It didn't really work for me.
I think it's one of these examples of sequelitis, trying to do everything the same as last time but bigger. And I think that actually doesn't really work, and you're better trying to do something different and fresh and original. So, for example, if this had been, let's say, similar setup, it's a generation later, Earth has adopted this alien technology, armed themselves, started kind of reinforcing the solar system against alien incursion, and then some aliens turn up, but it turns out to be the good aliens. So you could have first half is basically them going to war against the wrong people, and then everybody realizing that, okay, we're not actually that alien species from the first film. Then that alien species turns up. Then you've got a different story because you've now got people coming together. That might have worked.
Does that,
there are probably ways to do this.
Almost.
It tries to do that.
Not quite.
It tries. But it doesn't commit. And it basically tries to set that up as the sequel to this. With the big golf ball. Yeah. So I did, and again, just half as many human characters. If your human characters are not the point, as they aren't in something like this or something like Godzilla vs. Kong, then you need to have few enough of them to focus on, and then they need to be really good. They need to be really, really good. You need a charisma machine like Goldblum, like Smith, even like Bill Pullman. You need somebody who is that, aw shucks and likable in his case. And then you have the disposable, lesser characters around them. But you need those focuses to make it work. And this film doesn't have anyone who could really pull focus
like the first one does. It's so forgettable.
No,
I watched it 2 days ago and I can't remember a thing, but I could pretty much tell you everything that happens in Independence Day. I watched in '96.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It has scenes like the White House blowing up. You think, fuck, that was amazing to watch. Oh, and Will Smith just oozing charisma left, right, and centre. And then you get to this one, you're like, there was another alien ship, and it was bigger.
Which is bigger.
It's bigger, therefore scarier.
And they bring back Goldblum's dad again for some reason, make him the hero.
Yeah. Again, that I like him. I really love him in the first one. I think he's great. He's not doing anything wrong in this one. The whole idea that he ends up in charge of a busload full of kids is cute. But there's too much going on around them, and we don't need this one gigantic alien chasing him in a bus full of kids to have tension. There should be enough going on that we care, and the fact that it takes that for us to make us care is bad filmmaking, I think. So yeah, look, it's not the worst Roland Emmerich film. I still haven't forgiven him for Anonymous, which I hate with the Fire of a Thousand Suns, because Shakespeare wrote the works of Shakespeare, and I'm not here for any argument on that. But it's pretty bad. This is worse, I think, than 2012. It's significantly worse than Day After Tomorrow, and worse than Godzilla 98, which I quite like. I just right.
Where's my sequel? I'm still waiting for it. This also leaves it open for a sequel at the end, and I guess they had intentions to move forward with a trilogy, because at one point, if I'm not mistaken, they actually announced that this was going to be 2 films. It was going to be called Independence Day Forever 1 and 2 at some point. Yeah,
it's one of those endings of a film that sets up a sequel it absolutely hasn't earned, and you don't want by the time you've watched it. And I feel like it's it's a problem of sequelitis in Hollywood. There was a period there where everybody was trying to make everything a sequel. I mean, I remember they announced that Smurfs was going to be a trilogy. That was the moment where I sort of slightly lost the will to live. Like, I think they announced it before making the first one, but certainly before making the second one. Smurfs was going to be a trilogy. And look, there are times where it's good to have an idea of where you want to go. But the problem is, a lot of the time where people have this roadmap before the first film comes out, it's a sign that they haven't focused enough on telling a great story first time around. And you need to do that first. That needs to be your one and only priority when making the first film. And if in the editing room at some point you have an idea for film number 2, more power to you. But you should not be building film number 1 around that, because it's presumptuous, and I think that the audience can sense it and resent.
And now we're left with this film that promises a third and never gets it, and that winds me up no end. Mm-hmm. Where do you think they would have gone? Would we have seen the alien planet?
I think it was going to be maybe actually, but I think it was definitely going to be this alien sort of multi-alien civilization on their kind of haven world. Coming to join up with Earth and take the fight to the aliens. I assume that would have been it. And you know what? There is a lot to be said for that. Like, there are some great sci-fi novels out there that are about, alien civilizations, plural, coming together to fight a great threat. And that hasn't really been done in cinema. Like, not in good cinema anyway. It's been done on some, Last Starfighter-y type things. But, I'm talking about alien-looking aliens teaming up with humanity to take down bad aliens. That is not something we've seen a million times.
And not led by Liam Hemsworth.
And no. I mean, bring, Will Smith would be great, please.
The way they killed him off in this, couldn't they have left him alive just in case? I know.
There's no way he wouldn't have been there.
There's 2 rumours that either one, he priced himself out of it, and 2, he was too busy doing Suicide Squad. So I would have given him the world to be in this movie. I think they should have tried harder. Did you go to the press screening of this?
You know what? I don't even really remember. I must have done. I'm pretty sure I did, yeah. But it hasn't left an impression.
No, I just imagine what the feeling in the room after is when a film like that, you've been waiting for 20 odd years for, and then the lights come up afterwards and everyone looks at each other and thinks, that was not good, was it?
No, yeah, it's a real deflating feeling in those moments, because I know people think critics hate films, and it's the exact opposite. Like, we're in this game because we love movies, and so coming into something like that, which a lot of us have so much affection for the original, and just seeing that result is always kind of a disappointment. We are, believe it or not, rooting for every single filmmaker to make greatness. Like, that genuinely would make me so happy, because nobody sets out to make a bad movie, and every single movie, no matter how tiny, is the result of, dedicated work by at least dozens and usually hundreds of people. So you want it to be great and you want to love it. And it's kind of always painful when you don't. Yeah. So
what is the most disappointed you've ever been with a sequel? So the original was so good, and then you're like, I can't wait to watch blah, blah. And it was disappointing. Not bad, just disappointing.
Just disappointing. I mean, honestly, this is one of those. I feel like there were a few that summer, and I'm now blanking on what all the other ones were, but that particular summer there were several of these kind of movies, like big, much anticipated movies that just came out and went,
Yeah.
I mean, Suicide Squad, obviously not a sequel, but that was one of them. But I mean, there've been some of the X-Men films, maybe Apocalypse actually. I know I've mentioned it already, but that's why it's in my head. But you know, I love X-Men. I love X-Men 2. So X-Men 3 hurt.
Yeah, that
was bad. And then, you know, First Class I didn't love, but Days of Future Past, oh my God, adored. And then Apocalypse, and then Dark Phoenix. And like, just...
Such a roller coaster, isn't it, the X-Men films?
It really is. It really is. And I think, you know, there's so much to work with in the comics, and they're so beloved. And yet, I think certain bits of it, they have real trouble really nailing. And weirdly, you know, what's kind of frustrating is X-Men 3 and X-Men Dark Phoenix have the same problems both times. So it's a bit like, did you not learn anything from the first one? Because you're doing it again. You're making Jean Grey's story all about Professor X. Why are you doing that? Why? It's not his story. It's hers. What's happening? Stop it.
Different filmmakers, they should have learned.
It probably says something more about where I am in my life at the moment, Dave. But as soon as you said that question, I was like, Cars 2. It's Cars 2.
Really?
I mean, I'm sorry, but just the existence of Cars was pretty upset. No, that's not fair. Cars, I actually gave a pass to. You're right, Cars 2 was a massive step down. Because Cars, I didn't love, but I think the animation in that film is some of the best Pixar had ever done at that point. Like, the detail is gorgeous. But yeah, Cars 2 was just like a silly car, like a cartoon. And I'm not used to Pixar making cartoons. They make animated films.
Yeah, that's the one when it tries to turn into a spy film.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah,
it
does. Yeah, yeah.
It's really bad. And I've watched it about 100 times because my little boy was obsessed with it. So
dear.
I've unfortunately seen it so often.
I don't even remember what happened in Cars 3. I literally can't remember a single thing about it.
Cars 3 could have been really good. The premise is
It's
quite
the one
good.
when he's old and there's a young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
New technology,
All right,
and he has to go and do the Rocky montage up in the mountains. Or something.
Yeah, that rings a vague bell. I'm just not really here for Cars movies. Luckily, my nephew is really into robots. So WALL-E was the one he watches on repeat. So, yeah, we're trying to encourage
Would you watch a sequel to that?
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
thought you said, have you watched the sequel from it then? Everyone was like, there's a sequel to WALL-E?
There's another? Yeah, I would watch that in a minute. I think the only Pixar movies that absolutely should never, ever, ever have a sequel are Up and Inside Out, which are perfect as they are and stand very much alone. And possibly in retrospect, Monsters, Inc. and Finding Nemo, both of which have fine sequels, but they're just not a patch on the originals, which are perfect.
Yeah. What do you think makes a bad sequel and what makes a good sequel? What do you need to Do you need a good cast?
Yeah.
A decent script would help.
I think script is the big one that sequels fall down on. So I think what you need is to have really thought about why you're there, apart from make more money, right? So leaving that aside, let's all assume that's on the table, but let's ignore that. Why else are you there? And what else is there really to explore about these characters, this situation, this world, whatever? And the ones I really admire most are the ones that try and do something different to the first film. So the classic is Alien versus Aliens. You're not going to make a better space-based horror than Alien. No one has in the time since. So what do? You make it the greatest space-based action movie that anyone's ever made, basically. That's how you do it. That's how you justify your existence. If if it's something like a Star Wars, then great, you continue the story, you have an epic struggle. What's the next stage in this epic struggle? Fine. Some of those even make the same mistake of just trying to do what they did before that worked and just bigger. That's always where they fall down. You have to find a new reason to exist and a new way to explore this world, which is one of the reasons that people kind of complaining about quote unquote wokeness in movies are wrong, because one of the ways that you can kind of open up the world and explore the world in a different way and make it feel different and make it feel particular is by casting different kinds of people and having different life experiences kind of feed into that story. So that's why I know it didn't end up being brilliant, but on paper, they did everything right with Ghostbusters 2016. That was exactly the approach to take. It's a new generation of extremely funny people from SNL, exactly the same as the last lot. But, oh, look, they happen to be women. And so that gives you something different to work with. And that would have been great if it was like 15% funnier, So I feel like you need to have a really really good idea of why you're there. And I think that's why the Harry Potter sequels work. It's why the Marvel Cinematic Universe works. It's because they know what they're trying to do with each different film. And they have a clarity to that I think very few sequels have. So, yeah that's the big idea.
Also, if there's a big gap between the original film and the sequel, like there was with Independence Day, respect the fans of the original film and don't try not to do the cheeky little wink and nod things back, because they just come across as ridiculous. Try and not, if you're gonna do it, do it knowingly rather than kind of in a kind of cheesy way. I don't think I'm getting across what I mean very well, but
Are you saying you don't like films that have like a 30-year gap?
No, it's fine. No, I have watched Coming to America too. Actually, I think it's fine to have a 30-year gap, but don't do a Coming to America 2 where basically all you do is go, wasn't the first one great? Wasn't the first one so funny? And don't do anything new in your sequel.
It has to feel fresh. And I think that's comedy sequels in particular. The great comedy sequels can be counted on one hand. I mean, it is so difficult to do a genuinely great comedy sequel. Like Zoolander failed, Anchorman failed, Coming to America failed. Like it's almost impossible. Even something like Airplane 2, which has its fans, come on, it's not even close to Airplane, and don't try to tell me otherwise. So
I'm actually struggling to think of a good sequel to a comedy, and I can't.
I did think of one recently, and it's gone out of my head.
I'm thinking Blues Brothers, awful. Hangovers.
I didn't hate the Blues Brothers 2000, but yeah, it's not a patch on the original. I didn't hate it because the music's really good, so I was kind of there.
Friday and Next Friday. I think that's okay.
Fair enough.
That works for me.
I'm sure there are. I'm gonna get, as soon as I get off the line, I'm gonna think of others. There are a couple that have done it, but so few. It is so difficult. And that's because you need a bit of transformation to really make your sequel work. And you can't just blow up a bigger city, Roland Emmerich. You need to give us another reason to be there. And that's tricky. And it's tough. And it's not just the filmmakers or the screenwriters. They may well have all of these ideas. I'm sure they did. And then you get the studio heads going, no, but it needs to be like the first. And they are wrong on that. They are absolutely 100% wrong.
And your characters need to have grown. Like, you can't be just have grayer hair,
Yes. No, 100%. Every single Shrek film, including the half-hour specials, have him wanting to be on his own and then realising that other people are okay. Every single Shrek movie. Like, get a new story a little bit. I know that's a thing for him, and I know people can get stuck in a rut and still have to learn the same thing over and over again. But also, why not learn something new?
I would say Shrek 2 is better than Shrek 1. Does that work?
Was that the one where he becomes a handsome prince? Yeah, that was funny. Yes. That was pretty good. It did. That was funny. It was one of those sequels where there's a lot of good stuff, but again, there's a few too many characters for me. I really like my films kept very elegant and simple, and I feel like if you're going to have a huge number of characters in your film, it better be Endgame, and you better have spent 23 films establishing them all.
What was your pick for the dream sequel?
So my pick was a sequel to The Princess Bride called Buttercup's Baby, and the reason for this is if you read the book of The Princess Bride, if you read certainly the quote-unquote 25th anniversary edition or later, you will find a chapter at the end which is chapter 1 of Buttercup's Baby, a book that has not actually in fact been written, and the chapter is called The Death of Fezzik, which is very upsetting immediately, and it's a great story, and you're just like, I need more I must have it. And so yeah, I would love to see that, but I would be extremely picky about it. And I don't know if there's anything more out there, if William Goldman ever wrote more and left it in a desk drawer or something, if one of his family will one day find it and publish it, I would 100% be here to read it. But I would absolutely love to see more Princess Bride, because it is one of my all-time favourite films. And I think if you got the original cast maybe doing voice work and then animated it, I think it could be pretty special. Because I don't want to recast any of them. I mean, I can hear the arguments for recasting. Like, someone the other day suggested that Tom Hiddleston would make a fine Man in Black, and that's true. However, he is not, ultimately. the Man in Black, you know. So while he would be very good in the role is in fact Cary Elwes's and always should be. So I would quite like to see an animated version of that, and I think it could be cool.
What happens in that chapter?
Well, so basically, I mean, obviously the whole kingdom is after them as they escape, so they have to, you know, sort of ride through the night. They end up getting themselves onto an island that is surrounded by whirlpools, basically, so no one can come and get them, which gives them all a bit of time to kind of relax and recuperate. And Buttercup has a baby, and Fezzik becomes the baby's nursemaid, and they live there for several years, and the baby, you know, Fezzik is devoted to the kid, and the kid is likewise devoted to Fezzik, because of course they are. And then there comes a time when the baddies are coming to get them, basically, and they have to escape up a mountain. Or rather, Fezzik is escaping up the mountain while the others, I think, try to get Inigo and the Dread Pirate Roberts and the ship Revenge to come back and rescue them. And Fezzik ends up separated from the group and is chased basically to the top of the mountain. And the only way to get Buttercup or the baby to safety is basically to jump off and cushion the baby's fall with his own body. And it's just like, I can't even. It's very upsetting. But yeah, that's sort of the opening chapter of the book. So you've got all these baddies after our little gang and them desperately trying to escape with the kid in tow.
When Dave mentioned this to me as your sequel, the first thing that came into my head is, we need a middle-aged Fred Savage reading this to Peter Falk in his nursing home.
Oh my God.
This is how it needs to go.
Oh God, wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful? But yeah, absolutely, Fred Savage reading it to his kid would be amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that would be a good place to start it.
Yeah.
And who would do the music? Because Mark Knopfler did the original, which I found out when I was watching it.
Yeah.
Would you let Mark back in, or is there another person?
I mean, yes, probably. I don't know. You could maybe get, you know, somebody to zhuzh it up a bit, but I think you start from there probably. So if he wanted to come back, great. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, there's a lot of really good composers around right now. I feel like Daniel Pemberton would do some cool stuff with it. I feel like he'd kind of mix it up a bit. I think that would be quite cool. But I'm not fussy. You know what? I just want to see it. No offense to anybody, but I just demand that it be made immediately. Thank you.
So is The Princess Bride your favourite?
I don't have exactly just one. I don't feel the need.
For a Tuesday, is it your
For a Tuesday, sure. For a Tuesday. But actually, I mean, Cyrano de Bergerac is really high up there. The 91 version. 99, 90, 91? One of those. 91, I think. That's really, really high on my list. I love that. His Girl Friday with Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant is sublime. Obviously, a certain number of Marvel films would be high up the list for me as well. But yeah, and Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, Gentlemen Wear Blondes. Yeah, but The Princess Bride is high on the list. I feel like we do not talk enough, and I've said this on the Empire podcast, so apologies for repeating myself, anybody, but we don't talk enough about Rob Reiner's run in the 80s. We do not give it enough respect.
Would you bring him back to direct?
I'd have him involved in some way. He'd probably work with an animation director, I guess. But yes, he should absolutely be involved in it. But yeah, just like, you know, what was that? Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally. I'm forgetting something. The Sure Thing, I think, is in there as well. What a run. What an incredible, incredible run. And he went on to A Few Good Men at the start of the 90s as well, and the American President. We don't talk about North, but the rest, holy shit, what a guy.
I really enjoyed North when I was little. I absolutely loved it. I don't know why. I think because I was just that age. I thought, I want to go get rid of the parents, and if they're listening, love you, Mum and Dad. And just do what he did. But yeah, do you get annoyed when people say they don't like Princess Bride?
I just don't believe them. I just think that's a ridiculous thing to say. Come on, be sensible. Come on, seriously, Bob.
Rich,
I don't like it as much as Helen does, but
good answer.
But no, it's
Good
charming.
answer.
How can you not like it? Like, you know, it's a completely charming film, and it's got Andre the Giant in it. You know,
I mean, what more do you want?
He's great.
Do you know what? It's funny. So I had a boyfriend at one point that I decided he'd never seen The Princess Bride, which obviously was not going to stand, right? That was not acceptable to me. Mm-hmm. And so I insisted that we sit down one night and watch it. And he was literally doing the Fred Savage thing. He was literally going, "Is this a kissing film?" He's like, why do you have me watching this rom-com? And what was hilarious was every time he would get to the point of saying something like that, Fred Savage would cut in to the film.
Amazing.
And say exactly essentially what he had just said. and completely undermine him. And I just think that brought home to me really how smart this film is and how expertly crafted it is in terms of it gets you exactly at the point where you're about to be cynical and it cuts the legs out from under you and you're right back in it. It's brilliant. What a movie.
I've never really thought about that. I watched it the weekend and I thought Stardust owes this so
Oh, yeah.
much.
Stardust, 100%.
Literally just ripped it off.
I feel like, I mean, I like Stardust. I literally just watched it on Sunday night, actually, weirdly.
Yeah, it's great.
And I think rip-off is harsh, but I do think it's the closest it's come to having that tone, I think, ever since, and that kind of self-awareness and kind of knowingness and humour that this has. It's a really particular blend, and it's pretty much impossible to replicate, and people have tried and they've generally failed. I mean, something like El Enchanted, charming but in a very different way. Shrek, funny but in a very different way. You know, this is really special and yeah, almost unique. So I would of course make it less unique by making a sequel.
What would you do about the characters that have passed away, sadly, like Andre the Giant? Would you recast their voice, or would you delve back into whatever the films and try and
zhuzh it a bit?
Or is there a voice in your head that could
No,
do
I
that?
think, I mean, it'd be difficult. I think that if that first chapter is indeed how the story goes, and if Fezzik does indeed die, you probably, I know it'd be really upsetting, but you probably could get away with not having to recast it and just reminding people how much they loved Andre the Giant without having a voice really for that character, because I think you could do that wordlessly with him and a little baby or a little kid. So that I think would be all right. I think everybody else is still with us at the moment.
The people who survived the last film, yes.
I think so. So I would, hopefully they would all be up for it. But
they did a live table read.
They did,
last year, didn't they?
Amazing stuff.
Didn't they do kind of like a 2020 version? Is that a...
I think there was a Quimby,
there was a
lockdown.
Chris Pine, I think, voicing the Man in Black,
and
which is again, good casting,
Patton
really good
Oswalt
casting.
and stuff.
It's good casting, but it's not.
Patton Oswalt would be really good. Was he Vizzini?
I think
He'd be
he
really
was,
good
yeah.
as Vizzini. Oh, see, that's good. That's really good. Smart casting. So yeah, I'm not. I would prefer the animated route with the original cast. If you can, maybe you can convince me. Obviously, I'm the one you have to convince, and not the rights holders or the studio. I could be open to being convinced by a new cast of sufficient quality. But really, I kind of just want the originals, yeah.
Yeah, would you take a sequel?
Oh, God, yeah. No, don't ever touch it. There are certain films that you are not allowed to remake. So Casablanca, you are not allowed to remake it. Even if you are Pamela Anderson and you're going to call it Barbed Wire. No more Casablanca. Thank you. I wouldn't... well, actually, His Girl Friday has been remade multiple times with new technology, and I think actually we're due another His Girl Friday, so that one I'm sort of open to. But, some of my other favourites, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, perfect as it is, Don't You Dare. The Apartment, Some Like It Hot, perfect as they are, Don't You Dare. I mean, anybody stepping into to Jack Lemmon's shoes should step straight back out again. That is not okay.
No one else in the world could strain pasta with a tennis racket
in
the way that Jack
racket.
Lemmon does.
I mean,
it's
that scene is just a miracle. That scene is so beautiful. I love it. So yeah, there are certain things you cannot touch. And for me, The Princess Bride is 100% one of those.
I get that. I totally get it, because there are lines from The Princess Bride that I knew before I knew they were from The Princess Bride.
Before you
and that's the sign of a great movie, right? Is that it enters the culture without you even realising it. It's osmosis into your life.
I have been to quote-along screenings of it at the Prince Charles Cinema here in London, and it's brilliant. It's the whole place just chorusing out, the scene, the poison scene, basically in unison. Some people tried to talk during the film, which was obviously not okay, because it's a quote-along, not a talk-along. But yeah, it's brilliant.
And that was the Unequal sequels of the wonderful Helen O'Hara. Dave, did you enjoy that one?
I really enjoyed that chat. I can't believe she said yes to it, actually, to be fair to it. Because I've been listening to Helen for so long on the Empire podcast. It was great. It was quite surreal for me, because I'm quite a bit of a fanboy. So, that was great. I really enjoyed it.
She's got absolutely impeccable taste in movies.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic, and so knowledgeable. It was absolutely brilliant. If you enjoyed listening to the podcast, then check out the Empire Film podcast that Helen does, and also try and pick up her book, the Women versus Hollywood book, which is a really good read. Dave, have you finished it yet?
Yes, it's very good.
Yeah, it's excellent. I've got it on audiobook, so I'm trying to listen to it.
If you enjoyed this very podcast, there is more coming. You can find us on Twitter at Unequal Sequel. Podcast will be up on all your favourite podcasting platforms. Please give it a like and subscribe. This is episode 1, so I'm pretty sure you're not going to give anything 5 stars straight away. But if you want, please go ahead and hit that 5 stars.
I think it's worth 6 stars. It's a cracking first episode.
Yeah, it's really good. Like and subscribing means you can tell when a new episode drops. We've got a few more coming in the next few weeks, and it'd be great for you to listen to more.
Don't sound too keen, Dave.
I was thinking, is that too begging? Please listen to the other episodes.
Please listen to some more, please. Please come back.
Yeah.
We will be good again, I promise.
If you love films and you like sequels, then this is the podcast for you.
Even if you don't like sequels, because we do talk about some hideous ones as well.
Yes.
So, if you've got an irrational hatred of sequels, this is also the podcast for you too.
Agreed.
So, we'll see you again soon.
Bye.